The Indian markets were in for a free fall today. The bleeding began 2 weeks ago, but today the markets hemorrhaged. The Sensex was down by more than 1,000 points. In 2 weeks, this index has fallen by nearly 3,000 points. Same with Nifty. It recorded a fall of over 300 points today. In 14 days, Nifty has lost close to 1,000 points. Less than 4 months ago, traders were celebrating. Indian stock markets were at a record high. In fact, they were outperforming every major index. Foreign investors were pouring money into India. In September this year, they bought nearly $9 billion worth of Indian stocks. Today, investors of all sizes lost more than $130 billion. Let me repeat that. Investors who poured money into the Indian market have lost $130 billion today. What explains this? Who ended the bull run? The Wuhan virus, more specifically, the Omicron variant. Omicron has reached more than 80 countries in the world now. It's a nightmare that's spooking investors. Stock exchanges around the world are counting their losses. Asian markets were down by as much as 2% today. Japan, Hong Kong, China, Taiwan, they all reported losses today. European stocks fell the most in 3 weeks. American markets are also seeing red. So why are global investors so worked up about Omicron? Well, they're worried about the trajectory of this variant. There are 5 worrying trends. Number 1, global caseloads are rising. Number 2, leading nations are becoming hotspots. Number 3, restrictions are back. Number 4, vaccines are proving to be less effective or ineffective in some cases. And number 5, there are growing instances of social unrest. All of this was triggered by Omicron. So are we back to where we started? Let's decode these trends. First, the global infection rates. They're up again. In October, around 300,000 people were getting infected on a daily basis worldwide, 300,000. As of December 18th, more than 500,000 people tested positive. The reason is Omicron. The world is failing to contain it. Trend number 2, the rise of more hotspots. At least 89 countries have confirmed cases of Omicron now, which means this variant has reached every major continent. It's unavoidable. Going by one estimate, Omicron has now infected more than 60,000 people worldwide. 12 deaths have been reported from this variant, all of them in the United Kingdom. What about India? So far, more than 160 cases of Omicron have been found in India. The first cases were detected on the 3rd of December. In 17 days, we have more than 160 recorded cases. There's no denying that this variant spreads quickly. Southern Africa was the original hotspot of Omicron. We blamed vaccine inequity for that. But now, new infection zones have emerged, and these are the regions with the highest vaccination rates in the world, like the United States and Europe. The US has one of the biggest vaccine stockpiles in the world. It still cannot tame the virus. More than 125,000 Americans are testing positive every day. Hospitalizations have shot up by 20% in 2 weeks. We are not sure if all of these cases are of Omicron, but 45 American states have detected the variant so far. America's top infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, says he's worried. He says Omicron is raging across the world, and it's the most transmissible form of the Wuhan virus yet.
The most transmissible virus of COVID that we had to deal with thus far. It has a doubling time of about 3 days, which means if you do the math on that, you see how quickly, over a period of time, that the dominant variant will be Omicron, as it is in South Africa, as it is now approaching that in the UK.
Cases of Omicron are doubling in less than 3 days. This variant is proving to be difficult to contain. It is proving to be a serious challenge for Europe. And that brings me to the third worrying trend, lockdowns and restrictions. They're back in some places. Several European nations have already issued orders. A nationwide lockdown has been imposed in the Netherlands. Meanwhile, the United Kingdom, Denmark, Germany, Ireland, France and Belgium have all reimposed restrictions. In some countries, crowds are not being allowed to gather in public places. Others have slapped travel restrictions and mask mandates. So Christmas is more or less ruined for the West. Countries like Germany believe a massive 5th wave is coming.
Auch ich gehe von einer massiven 5. Welle aus.
I too expect a massive 5th wave. I am in close contact with my colleagues in England, both politically and scientifically. We were still discussing this yesterday, and the colleagues are saying that what they are seeing there exceeds everything they have seen so far.
Also übertrifft, was also in der gesamten Pandemie bisher beobachtet wurde.
That's the fear in Europe. But in Israel, the fifth wave has already begun. Israel's Prime Minister Naftali Bennett has issued a warning. He believes more people could get sick in the coming days.
רבותיי, הזמן שקנינו הולך ואוזל.
Ladies and gentlemen, the time we bought is running out. Omicron is already in the country, from the Knesset to the kindergartens, and it spreads quickly. The numbers are still not high, but it's a very contagious variant, doubling itself every 2-3 days as we see around the world. It's possible to say that the fifth wave has begun.
Why is the West so worried? It's because of trend number 4, the vaccines. They may not be as effective against Omicron. There is now a lot of data on vaccines. Reports say most of the existing vaccines will not be able to stop an Omicron infection. Vaccines from AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson, Russia's Sputnik V shot, and the Chinese vaccines might struggle. Some reports say Pfizer and Moderna shots have a better chance, but only when you take a booster. Now, I want to underline something here very, very clearly. All vaccines may have a reduced efficacy against Omicron, all of them. But they still protect against severe illness and hospitalization. So if you've not taken a shot yet, that's the first thing you need to do. Take a vaccine. Yes, pharma companies are chasing profits. Yes, booster shots sound like a very lucrative idea for them. Yes, it seems like an endless cycle of vaccines and boosters as the virus keeps mutating. But frankly, at this point, we don't have a choice. Vaccines can still save lives. Even if they cannot prevent infection, they can help you avoid hospitalization. So take that shot. What about immunity from previous infections? If you've had a bout of COVID in the past, can the Omicron variant still infect you? Honestly, we don't know for sure. A study did come out last week. It said the risk of reinfection with the Omicron is more than 5 times higher. But this is one study. We need more to establish this. There is no need to be alarmed, but there's every reason why you should be on alert because Omicron is spreading like wildfire and that's causing unrest. That's the fifth worrying trend that we have for you tonight. Protests have erupted in Europe. People are taking to the streets again. They're opposing new restrictions and vaccine mandates. In some instances, the protests have turned violent. Look at what happened in London on Sunday. Angry protesters clashed with the police. Why? Because the government has decided to reimpose restrictions. Violence over pandemic restrictions, questions over the efficacy of vaccines, a growing list of hotspots, lockdowns, a new worrying variant, and predictions of new waves. 2021 seems to be ending just like it began. But the silver lining in this dark, dark pandemic cloud is the rapid advancement of medical science. We have vaccines, we have medicines, we have experience. We should fare better. So let me end with what I've been saying for weeks now. Prepare, don't panic. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.